Hey everybody, welcome back. So No Hope for Yesterday has officially hit 30,000 words, and I'm keeping up with these every 10,000 word updates, or at least trying to. I'm gonna be real honest, guys. I don't have No Hope for Yesterday nearly as mapped out as I did No Place Like Tomorrow. So where I could sit down and write 70,000 words in a month with No Place Like Tomorrow, No Hope for Yesterday is just not moving nearly as quickly as the original book. Part of my struggle with No Hope for Yesterday is that while No Place Like Tomorrow had a very clear up and then down arc, and then ended on a cliffhanger, No Hope for Yesterday doesn't have a down. No Hope for Yesterday has been crafted in my head as we go up an arc and down a little bit and then go right back up into No Hope for Yesterday and continue on that upswing into No Cure for Today. And then we get that final down arc, that final climax, that final denouement in the third book. So writing a novel that's meant to be entirely uphill, where there's like a main goal in mind, but it doesn't hit until the third book, is a little bit of a challenge, and maybe I shouldn't have done that to myself, but I'm committed to this at this point because that's how I need it to happen with the way I've crafted this trilogy. Which, yeah, makes my life a little hard. Also, it's summer, and I don't know why, but I find that in the summertime, even though I have more time to write and more time to work on this, I'm not nearly as motivated in the summertime. In the summertime, I want to just sit and vibe and read books and not write them. So I'm a little less motivated than I have been in recent weeks. I'm still working, I'm still writing, I'm still adding things into my plot chart, although I'll be honest, I've kind of plugged in events I already wrote to make myself feel better. But No Hope for Yesterday is 11 chapters at this point. I'm in chapter 11, and it is 30,025 words. So we're still going to celebrate that little plot point, that little victory, because we've been celebrating every 10,000 words together, and I think we should keep doing every 10,000 words together. So the little snippet I'm going to share at this moment is going to be when Cyprian, who is Valen's son, we meet Cyprian in No Place Like Tomorrow. We meet him actually in chapter 21 chapter 17, wow, in No Place Like Tomorrow, and we meet Cyprian in a real fun way in No Place Like Tomorrow. I don't think I ever shared how we meet him, and I'm going to leave that to be a surprise, but we meet Cyprian in chapter 17 in No Place Like Tomorrow. Him and his mate, Jevin, both show up, and they hang around, and they stay for the rest of the book, and they stay into book 2 in No Hope for Yesterday. So we have Cyprian here, and in chapter 4 is where I'm reading. We have, at this point, Valens has come back from his time in the West. Eaton is still running the Organization for the Protection of Magical Realms and Beings, otherwise known as the OPMRB. But he's been running it with Zephyr and Jevin and Cyprian and Jira, who we also meet in No Place Like Tomorrow. So he's been running it without Valens. And Valens has now come back. He has brought Drake and Taj and Gyrus with him. Taj and Gyrus are Valens' mates. That's all talked about kind of actually in chapter 4, right around where I'm going to share. So I'm going to go ahead and read just this little piece. It's a part of a conversation that's happening between Cyprian and his father. It's the first time Cyprian's getting to talk to his dad since Valens showed back up in the East, in the country where No Place Like Tomorrow takes place. So here is that little bit. Cyprian flicks his gaze pointedly to Gyrus and Taj, who are awkwardly standing to the side in the lobby. Yeah, thought I sensed a change. I feel like that should have been announced through the link. Again, rude to keep us out of the loop. And how did that happen? You were bonded to Mom, and you initially refused Gyrus. You shouldn't be able to have another mate bond. Right? Valens can only shrug. I did not think it was possible, but here we are. Cyprian smirks and lowers his voice a bit. Gonna introduce me properly? Valens snorts a soft laugh and turns his attention to the other two dragons. Taj, Gyrus. They look up and head over when Valens motions to them. Gyrus is the taller of the pair. He is built like an athlete, slender and refined, with a sharp jaw and high cheekbones. His shaggy black hair has a natural curl to it, and his eyes are a light gray as opposed to the usual darker colors that black dragons have in their human forms. Next to him, Taj looks less like an athlete and more like an average businessman. He's shorter by a head, with a rounder face and overall softer look. Yet, somehow, he comes off as far more dangerous than Gyrus. His eyes are a dark gray that barely reflect the light, and his hair is cut so short it's hard to tell what its natural texture would be. Once they're close, Valens places a hand on Cyprian's shoulder. I would like to formally introduce you both to my son, Cyprian. Cyprian, well met. Gyrus smiles broadly, offering a hand to the younger black dragon. I think we may have met before the events last winter, but it's nice to be formally introduced. I'm Gyrus. I think you're right. Cyprian nods and accepts his hand warmly, but it's nice to formally meet you this time. Taj offers a hand as well, an easy smile touching the corners of his eyes. Even then, he still looks dangerous. But the danger isn't directed towards Cyprian when he says, I'm Taj. Valens speaks of you so often I feel like we've known each other for years, so it's nice to finally meet you in person, Cyprian. I wish I could say the same. Cyprian takes Taj's hand and shoots a pointed look at his father. But it's nice to meet you too, Taj. Taj chuckles at that, glancing at Valens as well. We did tell him to tell you, but your father has a mind of his own. You could say that again, Cyprian agrees. I'm going to pause because I don't want to go much further than that. I just wanted to bring Taj and Gyrus back to everybody's attention since they didn't get much more than a passing mention in No Place Like Tomorrow. Gyrus gets a mention in chapter 41, which is making plans in No Place Like Tomorrow. And you start to see a dynamic between Gyrus and Valens, but you don't get much more than that. He's mentioned once more in chapter 43, and then kind of falls off of the radar. So he comes back in No Hope for Yesterday, in chapter 4, officially, is when he comes, chapter 3, because he's mentioned by Zephyr at the end of chapter 3. So, Taj and Gyrus are Valens' mates. Now, keep in mind, my dragons mate in threes. So, a dragon gets 2 mate bonds. And that can be any configuration of gender. The most common, and for dragons, the most ideal, is 2 males and 1 female. The females are much more scarce than the males in the dragon species. You can end up with a 3 male trio. You can end up with a male and 2 female trio. You can end up where dragons only have 1 bond, and so they just make a pair. That can be 2 males, a male and a female. Some dragons, unfortunately, don't ever have a mate bond, and so they're just by themselves. I don't see my dragons ever being like a trio of females or a pair of females, only because dragons still do have the biological drive to procreate, so a female dragon wouldn't be happy with only another female dragon. So that wouldn't really work out in the specifics of the magic in my universe. So that's just not a thing. And yes, the males do have the drive to procreate too, but dragons are firmly a race where it's a fated mate bond, and so they don't believe they choose their mates. They have kind of a predestined, that's my mate. And it's discussed later on in No Hope for Yesterday between Valens and Taj and Jairus, discussed how dragons of the True King line, so Valens, Rysand, and Alperon, who were my 3 True King line dragons, they have a sense when they go into heat the first time, so when they first hit puberty, they know what their fated trio is going to look like. And Valens even knew that he was fated to Jairus and to Taj. And that's talked about because no, Valens didn't have 3 mate bonds. He wouldn't have mated his wife and Taj and Jairus. That wouldn't have happened. So his mate bond with his wife was actually artificial. It wasn't supposed to exist. He loved her dearly. That's not up for debate. This also ties into when I'm talking about Povulus with Valens and Eton, why that's not a romantic bond. Valens wouldn't be fated to a human. Not a thing. So, that's my little spiel for 30,000 words. I don't know when I'll check in again because, gosh, it took me a while to get to the 30,000. It felt a little bit like a chore, so I might be taking a break and working back at the drawing board and really putting together what needs to happen in No Hope for Yesterday to get me to the top point in No Cure for Today. And if I'm being real honest with myself, this might end up being a book and a sequel and not a trilogy, even though I love my trilogy idea. I just don't know that I've got 300,000 words in me for this project. So, no Place Like Tomorrow was 107,000 words. No Hope for Yesterday is starting to feel stale at 30,000, and that's a little bit terrifying to me as the writer, because I have all these ideas in my head, but nowhere to put them without feeling like I'm just going on random side quests in the plot. So I'll keep you guys posted as always, and I'll let you know what that ends up looking like. And if I change it from a trilogy to a pair, I don't know that I will. I don't know that I won't. It feels up in the air right now. So I might be taking a break for a little bit and going back to the drawing board this summer to work out all of the kinks in these last 2 books, these last 2 pieces that I need to go together, this idea for No Hope for Yesterday and No Cure for Today, figuring out how those are going to ultimately work with the slightly limited plot that I gave myself. But we'll get there. We'll make it work. And I'll talk to you guys later, I guess. Because there's still no place like tomorrow.